Of course, this is a real story. Pentagon blocks sharing evidence of possible Russian war crimes with the Hague court. Why do you think they did that? Why would the United States block evidence of Russian war crimes with the international court?
Is it because we don't belong to that court and we will be incriminated in some way?
Good guess.
Yeah.
The actual answer is because we're also war criminals and we don't participate in that kind of thing because we don't want our own soldiers to be prosecuted for war crimes.
Or our presidents and everyone. But why would we block evidence? That I don't get that part, actually.
The Pentagon is blocking the Biden administration from sharing evidence with the International Criminal Court in The Hague gathered by American intelligence agencies about Russian atrocities in Ukraine. American military leaders oppose helping the court investigate Russians because they fear setting a precedent that might help pave the way for it to prosecute Americans.
Americans don't do criminal things abroad.
The rest of the administration, including intelligence agencies and the state and justice departments, favors giving the evidence to the court. But the Pentagon knows of all the shit that they've actually been doing for the last 40 years, and they don't want to participate.
So they know. Also, they're probably the most aware of how much the Hulk Hogan WWF hype bullshit is more than a lot of these State Department people, I think, believe that shit. Like, they're not fighting the wars. They're not seeing how it turns out. That's fine. On to the next video game.
Yeah, that's right. The evidence is said to include details relevant to an investigation the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, began after Russia's invasion of Ukraine a year ago. The information reportedly includes material about decisions by Russian officials to deliberately target civilian infrastructure and to abduct thousands of Ukrainian children from occupied territories. Really? In December, Congress modified longstanding legal restrictions on American help to the court, allowing the United States to assist with its investigations and eventual prosecutions related to the war in Ukraine. But inside the Biden administration, a policy dispute over whether to do so continues to play out behind closed doors.
Why? Because we killed 90% innocent people the entire time using drones?
Just because? A spokesperson for the National Security Council provided a statement that did not address the Pentagon's opposition to sharing evidence, but she said that the government supports a range of investigations to identify and hold accountable those who are responsible for Russian war crimes, including through Ukrainian prosecutors, the United Nations, and the International Criminal Court, among others. But they don't support a range of investigations to identify and hold accountable those who are responsible for American war crimes. Just so you know. Russian forces have been committing war crimes and crimes against humanity in Ukraine, and the Ukrainian people deserve justice. We are also working to expose Russia's atrocities in Ukraine so the world can see what Russian forces are doing. There's literal Nazis in Ukraine's army. There's Nazi battalions. But you're upset about someone else. Okay. The International Criminal Court was created 2 decades ago as a standing venue to investigate war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity. In the past, the United Nations Security Council had established ad hoc tribunals to address atrocities in places like former Yugoslavia and Rwanda. Many democracies joined the International Criminal Court, including those close American allies like Britain. But the United States long kept this distance, concerned that the tribunal could someday try to prosecute America.
Boy, the police of the world sure do act like police, huh?
They sure do. They got qualified immunity. In 2017, the top prosecutor for the court at the time tried to investigate the torture of terrorism detainees during the Bush administration as part of a larger look into the Afghanistan war. In response, the Trump administration imposed sanctions on the court personnel, and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo denounced it as corrupt. I wonder why Mike Pompeo would object so strenuously.
Wait.
Maybe it's because he was plotting to assassinate a journalist, Julian Assange. Maybe that's why Mike Pompeo...
Is that a crime now?
Maybe that's why Mike Pompeo would object so strenuously to people being held accountable. A thaw returned in 2021 when the Biden administration revoked those sanctions and Mr. Khan, newly appointed as prosecutor, dropped the investigation.
Oh, so it worked out.
Then Russia invaded Ukraine last year, prompting a bipartisan push to hold President Vladimir Putin and others in his military chain of command to account, and setting off debates inside the administration and in Congress about whether and how to help the court.
Vladimir V. Putin, his middle name, he's Vladdy V.
He's double V. Hello, baby. While the U.S. government remains prohibited from providing funding and certain other aid to the court, Congress created an exception that allows it to assist with investigations and prosecutions of foreign nationals related to the situation in Ukraine.
Oh, so just this one time we'll look into it.
This one time we're going to look into it.
But isn't that still a precedent?
Despite the legal change in Congress's signal of support, the Pentagon has stood firm with the United States should not help their International Criminal Court investigate Russia.
Yeah, right.
That resistance has attracted criticism, both inside and outside the executive branch. Really, criticism. Some legal specialists contend that there is a scant belief to
benefit
to hewing.
Scant benefit to hewing.
There is scant benefit to hewing.
that position.
I never heard that word before.
I've heard it said like that by douchebags.
There is scant benefit to hewing to that position because the rest of the world essentially rejects that interpretation. They argue that the United States would win more support over a hypothetical attempt to prosecute an American by using a narrower argument that under the treaty, the court should only be used for countries that lack functioning investigative systems capable. Oh, my.
So that answers my question. They're like, it's just make it narrow that.
Still just not us.
So it's like, it's okay when we do it, the law.
Because the United States, the reason why the United States can do that, not be under subject of that court, but they want other people to be under the rule of that court, is because the United States has such a strong record of prosecuting American war criminals. Just ask George Bush, Donald Rumsfeld, Condi Rice, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden.
Look, regulation is crushing our war machine, Jimmy.
Ask Gina Haspel. Here's what Caitlin Johnstone said. She says, holy shit, the Biden administration was trying to help the International Criminal Court compile evidence of Russian war crimes, but the Pentagon made them stop because it might lead to a prosecution of American war crimes. Hey, listen, we can't let you guys go after Russia for war crimes because that might really set a bad precedent. What precedent? Of going after countries for war crimes. David Pinero says, well, there you go. Just when you thought Russia and the United States couldn't come together as a team on something. Ah! Hey, if you had nothing to hide, you'll have nothing to fear.
That panda really was delivering that line.
Yeah.
He nailed it.
Let's see that panda.
That looks like what he's saying.
Let's look at that panda, Andrew.
That's what he's saying. If you want to see my stand-up special, become a member at jimmydore.com. It's only $10, and come see our live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, St. Paul, Honolulu, Northampton, Massachusetts, Syracuse, Cohoes, New York, Hartford, and more.